What's up, YouTube? It's your boy KJ here, and we want to talk about ARs, because this season is really an AR meta, and there's lots of them out there to try, but it's really tough to know which one's the best. Which should I be using? What's the best for me? So that's what I'm going to try and do today. I'm going to look at the 5 most popular ARs out in the game right now, and that's the Fara 83, the Krig 6, the XM4, the C58, and the Grau. Now, I know there's lots of other really popular guns out there, the Ram, the AK-47, the Fara, the AMAX, but those are very specific niche guns, and the guys who are using those are using them for a specific reason. You're probably not looking for or trying to understand what the best gun is if you're using one of those, because they're sort of off meta. So let's just stick to the 5 meta guns. Not that I'm not going to cover some of those, because I'm going to look at sniper support and a few other things, but for this one here, we're just going to cover those 5, and I've got that for you right now. All right, so let's start real quick and just talk about how we're actually going to rate them. So I built this spreadsheet, and you've probably seen me use these before, where I've rated SMGs and ARs in the past. And what I did is I went and pulled out all the base stats for the guns, which is going to feed some of the data we're going to use to try and do the most objective rating we can. I'm also going to look a little bit at the overall damage per meg based on different places that we shoot, because that's actually a really important thing that I think a lot of people forget. And then we're going to give them some ratings, and it's going to calculate the total and tell us which one's in first as we go. So the very first thing we're going to look at is, this is the most subjective, and to be honest, it's just how I feel about the guns. So this is going to be overall feel. So let me play you some clip of me using every single one of these guns, because I've done reviews on all of them. If you want to look for a very specific review on one of these guns, you can check my videos. However, let me show you a quick review on each one, and then I'm going to rank them based on just the overall feel and how the guns feel to me when I'm playing with them. And if this video is helpful for you, consider subscribing to the channel and hit the thumbs up button, because that really does help small content creators like myself. All right, let me show you the clips. All right, so I got a 30-second segment on each gun. I'm going to start with the Fara 83, and honestly, it's got the highest fire rate of any of the guns, so I think it's probably one of the easiest to use because it's the most forgiving. It's very smooth, and it has a fairly slow reload time. That's the only sort of downside of it. It's about just over 3 seconds versus, you know, low 2 or 2.5 for most of them. But overall, the gun itself is really good and super easy to use. So if you're looking for a really easy gun, the Fara 83 is it. It's probably one of the best. I think the Krig is also pretty good, which is what we're going to talk about right now. Now, it has a slower fire rate, so it's going to punish you a little bit if you miss the shots, but it does have very low recoil, and it's really satisfying to use. It's got the second slowest RPM at 652, where the Fara 83 is 790. It's quite high. It's, you know, pretty fast to reload. It's low 2 seconds, and it's fairly easy to use. Look at all the, you know, easy hit markers and stuff I'm getting here. So that's pretty well the Krig in a nutshell. And even at distance like this, it tends to work pretty good. I think it's one of my favorite ARs. I really do like it. Now, the next one is the XM4, and I also really like the XM4. I didn't used to like the XM4, but I do now. It's got a fairly high fire rate at 721, has a pretty fast reload time. It has moderate recoil, but it's generally really easy to manage, and it's a really good sniper support gun if you run it with iron sights. That's one thing that I like about the XM4. It's always been pretty successful for me, and I generally don't feel like, you know, I'm ever outclassed when using the XM4 against, you know, other guns. And look at it, you can just get, you know, easy downs with it, so it's pretty good. Now, the C58, this is a low RPM gun. It doesn't have a very high fire rate. It's 553, but it hits like a Mack truck. It hits super hard. So if you can hit your shots and can manage the recoil, this gun is amazing. So it's a bit of a higher skill gun, but if you can handle it, it's the way to go. I like being able to have lots of damage per meg and not have to feel like I have to reload a lot, which is one of the things that we'll talk about in a second. And I mean, just the power of hitting guys with this thing is really good. I always really enjoy it. Look at this poor guy running. I mean, I missed a bunch of my shots there swinging it around, but it doesn't matter. I'll still be able to mow him down because it takes so few shots. Now, the Grau is one of the Modern Warfare guns I always liked. It was meta for a long time. I know the Kilo came in, but really the Grau was always pretty well the best one out there. It's got good RPM at 730. It's very slow and easy to use. It sounds good, and it's got a really fast reload time, the fastest of all the guns. So when I was playing with it, I sort of made me miss the Modern Warfare guns. It's really good and really easy to use. I quite like it. So in terms of rating, 10 is going to be the highest and 0 is going to be the lowest, although nothing's going to really receive 0. So for the Krig, I think it's my favorite. I'm going to give it a 10. Now, for 9, I think C58 is probably my next favorite for overall feel, because I can manage the recoil and I like how hard the thing hits. For 8, I'm probably going to give the Fara and the Grau a tie at 8 and the XM4 a 7. Not that I don't like the XM4, I just think that the Fara and Grau feel better to me, and I know it's sort of subjective, it's the only subjective part, but the Krig definitely feels the best, and I like how this one hits. So I think that's sort of how I'm going to land. Now for movement speed, we can pretty well just go over here and have a look at the movement speed, and the Krig has the highest movement speed. Look at that, 10, and then the next highest movement speed at is a C58 9, and then the XM4 is 8, Fara 83 is 7, and the Grau is 6. Wow, the Grau has slow movement speed compared. Now these are all pretty tight, let's be honest. So I mean they're not all that far apart. Recoil pattern. So this is a big one. Let me show you the recoil pattern video. So I landed in and shot all of the guns to see how they did, and I'm going to go in the exact same order. So this is the Fara 83, and you can see it has a pretty high recoil, but look at how easy the line is to shoot up there. And when I'm actually shooting a controlled shot, it's also very easy to get that controlled shot off. As you can see here, pretty smooth and easy to shoot. Now this is the Krig 6, and the Krig 6 has probably the lowest recoil of any of the guns. Now it does wander a little bit, but because there's so little vertical recoil, getting a tight shot on it right here is really easy. I had no problem being able to get a really nice close shot on it. So you can see how nice that one is. Now we got the XM4. The XM4 has a bit more recoil than the Krig 6 does. It's more like the Fara 83, but as you can see, it's a pretty smooth line with almost no horizontal. It's all vertical. So getting a nice tight shot on it is also really easy. Now, the C58, so the C58's a little bit different than the rest of them. It has a bit more recoil. I think it actually almost goes off the house. It almost does, yeah. And it goes a little bit left and a little bit right, so it has a little bit of movement. But when I'm taking a controlled shot, it too is also very easy. Once you learn the recoil pattern on these guns, getting a controlled shot nice and smooth like that is actually not all that hard. And then, of course, the Grau is our final one, and it has a little bit of, horizontal in the beginning where it moves around and then goes straight up. It's got a fairly moderate recoil, and getting a tight pattern on it is also fairly simple. You shoot around. I think I wandered a little bit there more than the rest of the guns, but generally speaking, it's pretty good. And when you look at all of the recoil patterns, the only one that really stands out is the Krig 6. And then you sort of have the Grau, I think, is sort of in second place, and then the XM4, and then the Fara 83 and the C58 are about the same near the end. So let's go score those. All right, so if I'm scoring the patterns, the Krig's going to have the best pattern overall. I think the C58 was 9, and then the Grau was 8, and then these ones were both about the same in at 7. All right, let's have a quick look at reload speed. So the fastest reloading gun is the Grau, so we're going to give it a 10, and then coming in second place is the Krig and the C58, both getting 9, and then the XM4 is an 8, and way in last place out here, over 3 seconds, is a Fara 83. I kind of wish that they would reduce the reload time on this one. It's too far out there. Anyway, let's look at time to kill close range and time to kill at range. And this is all with a basic AR build using an Axial Arms 3X. So when looking at the time to kill, you can see the Fara 83 has the best time to kill close and pretty well at range, which is pretty crazy considering, it has the highest fire rate and isn't one of the biggest damage performing guns. It's not exactly the what would look like to be the best, but yet here it's got a really good time to kill, followed pretty closely by the Krig. Now remember, there's not really a whole lot of spread between these. This is still over 6 and this is around 650. So you're only talking about a difference of about 30 or 40 milliseconds. All right, so for close range, definitely the Fara 83 was the best. The Krig was second. The C58 was in at third. The Grau was fourth. And the XM5 was bringing up the rear. So that only gets 6 points. All right, so let's have a look at the TTK at range. And we pretty well almost covered. It's not all that different. So it's the Fara, the Krig, the XM4, the C58, and the Grau. So let's have a look at how that looks like versus close range. So at range, the Fara was the best. The Krig was the second best. Then this was in third place, so it actually picked up a little bit there. the C58, and then the Grau. So it does actually change around a little bit. And it's interesting that the Fara 83 wasn't really that far ahead, but now with this, it's actually bumped it up quite a bit. All right, now let's look at damage per mag. This should actually change things a little bit. And we got to do a little bit of math here because I want to look at how much damage it does per mag based on each of the hit patterns. And I didn't include neck. I'm just going to do head, chest, stomach, and extremities because this is sort of the data that we have on the damage that it does. And of course, this is all from True Game data, so thanks to them for the data here. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of math here to get the damage per mag. All right, so I just went in and calculated the headshot damage times the size of the magazine for each of the categories. And one thing that stands out is the C58. Well, it's got a slightly smaller mag at 55, but it does so much more damage that its headshot damage is above all of the other ones. And in second and third, second place is the Krig and the XM4, and then Fara 83 and Grau. Now, let's be honest, you're not going to hit 60 headshots in a row. You know, you're likely to hit some chest and some extremities. And, you know, the Krig and the C58 are both sort of about the same when you do chest and stomach, and then extremities, it's higher than all of the rest of them. So it definitely has the capability of doing the most damage per mag. Now, this is not how much damage per mag. You know, your chest is probably going to be the closest to what you're going to do because it's where we most likely hit, you know, or chest and stomach, so to say. And a lot of them are exactly the same all the way across. So this is sort of it. So definitely the C58 is going to be able to do the most damage, followed by the Krig 6, and then getting into the XM4, and then the Fara 83 and the Grau. So let's go ahead and mark those ones up as well. So this is definitely going to do the most, and then we're going to give this 9 and an 8. And let's see, these are both tied at 7 and 7. Whoops. 7 and 7. All right, so where did we land? Well, we landed with the Krig 6 in first place as probably the best gun. And to be honest, I think it's one of my most favorite. And I also really like the C58. So I hope some of my personal bias didn't get in the way here. I don't use the Fara 83 all that much, and it came in at third, a little surprising there. And then tied for fourth is the XM4 and the Grau. Now, the overall rating on all of these is all pretty close. I mean, the lowest is 52 and the highest is 66. So the actual spread here isn't really all that high overall, considering the max that you could get in any one of the categories is 70. So the Krig did really well in pretty well all the categories. It's a pretty strong performer. And to be honest, it's probably my go-to AR that I think I use most often. I really do like it. It hits hard. It's got, you know, good mobility. You know, you can use it at range. So it's probably a pretty good gun that, you know, if you're looking for a new one to go with, that this is likely the one. And I've done a pretty good review on it. If you want to check it out, I'll link it right here. You can go and check out my Krig review. All right, guys, that's it for me. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think is the best AR out there? Now, I know I left a couple out. Before you yell at me, yes, I didn't cover the AK. Yes, I didn't cover the RAM or the AS Val or the AMAX, a bunch of those. But those are sort of niche guns that the guys who are using those really aren't looking to change or try something different. And I do like the RAM as a sniper support gun, so I'm going to talk about that later. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. And as always, guys, if you don't see me in Warzone, if you don't see me in multiplayer, it's only a matter of time, baby. King James out.